Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 50th episode of the Hardly Millennial podcast, where we are young, we are dumb, and we are certainly full of
opinions. 50 times over.
The big 5-0.
Oh my gosh, Adam, we made it.
We made it, man.
We fucking made it, bro.
It's hard to believe that we're 50 days into this. It feels like so much longer, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, it feels like certainly a marathon.
Yeah, that's a
a marathon
good way to
that
put it.
I thought I was prepared for. And I guess we were to some extent because we're still here.
To some extent. Well, and we were just talking outside right before this podcast of just how easy a lot of this comes to us now, as opposed to where we were
Compared
to 3 weeks ago.
a month ago. Mm-hmm. This has certainly become, I would say, almost cookie cutter in how we set it up and how it's done. We try to switch up the content every day, what it's about, but man, we used to sit there and plan and write. There was a whole process, like an hour to 2 long before the podcast.
I was just gonna say, in light of it being episode 50, I'd like to go back and just share with you guys where we were when we first started this.
Oh my gosh, we had no idea.
Yeah, so when we first started the podcast, guys, we were always trying to think of so the first thing we did was we really did just try to sit down and just bullshit with each other, right?
Yes.
And we
failed miserably.
And we failed miserably, yes. And if you guys go back and listen to like the first podcast, you'll kind of see that we're kind of fighting for
rough.
time.
It was rough.
So then we created a new way of doing it where we were trying to think of a specific topic.
We would try to think of a topic.
And then we'd write down like 8 bullet points.
Yeah, little subtopics about it, And for the most part, we found that when we did that, we would end up only going over those 8 bullet points.
Yes.
And having this weird, awkward time at the end where it wasn't time to end the podcast.
Right.
But it felt natural to end the podcast there.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but I felt like it fixated us. So we would go through these bullet points, and if you and I did get into a tangent, we felt like we had to stop that tangent
to stick
to
to
go
the bullet
back
point.
to the subject,
Right.
And sometimes those tangents are what create, fluent conversation.
Right.
And so we would find out going back to the bullet points, and then just as you said, then we'd maybe get through them all, or we'd just be fighting, or really just sometimes not be interested in exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, sometimes you just not. After 45 minutes of talking about something, it's done. It's been explained.
Yeah.
So then we decided we evolved into we would look at the news. We would find things on the news. And this is pretty recently we started doing this, probably in the last couple weeks. Trying to be more relevant with the times, if you will.
Well, and what that's done for us that we didn't realize it would do for us, because at first it was just like look at what's happening in the news, and then that would basically be the topic for the podcast.
Right.
But what we found out was you would start off with like one thing that happened in the news, and then we'd go off into tangents, and then before you knew it, we'd be going over like 20 minutes over our time. And we're like, see, that was good conversation.
It got much more fluid, much more natural, I think.
Yes, I agree.
And now, man, the last week or so, we just literally sit down, guys.
Yeah.
Just Adam comes home from work. I've been home for a little bit. We sit down and we just start talking.
Yeah.
It's
we've had some great podcasts just doing that.
I like to think so.
Yeah,
we're getting nice feedback. So
yeah, why don't you guys leave a comment below and tell us what you think?
Just write 50 times.
Yeah, there you go. Do that.
Fuck it.
Please do that. So Matthew and I actually both have stories to share today that we have not shared with each other yet.
True. I have no idea what Adam is going to bring up.
Yeah,
and he has no idea what I have to bring up.
This is very true. So the story that I'm going to bring up is, let me start off right off the bat. So I'm going to bring up a court case.
Oh, okay.
Something that I...
Your own?
No.
Okay, good.
That might be a conversation for another day, though. We'll see what life brings for me.
I hope not.
Yeah, me too. But anyway, so a coworker and I were talking about this, and just to be clear first, I haven't done like intricate research into this particular case myself.
Oh, those are the best things to talk about.
Yeah, so this was just a conversation I had with somebody at work, and I remember when this case happened. I don't remember all the details, but she was looking up details about it as we were talking about it.
Okay.
And it brought up an interesting question, as well as it's just a very interesting story all around. So I want to say this happened like 5 years ago.
Okay.
To where there was this girl whose mother raised her to make her think that she had cancer her whole life.
All right.
Yeah. So this girl if I remember correctly, she didn't go to school. She just grew up thinking she had cancer. Like her mom, I believe, would constantly like shave her head and do different things like that.
Oh, wow.
And she was 17 years old, and she had, they said, the like mind of an 8-year-old just because of how uneducated she was.
Okay.
So during this time of this mother raising this daughter in this very weird way.
Right.
The daughter started to talk to people online, specifically got in contact with like a boy online at one point, right?
Of course.
And I'm not sure of the details, but basically this boy convinced this girl to kill her mother.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is not what I was expecting to happen.
So that's where the court case comes in.
Oh my.
So
did the Okay, just continue.
Well, so I was just gonna say, so I don't know the details, so I don't know like how she killed the mother, nor do I, and I believe it happened once I think the daughter did find out that she didn't actually have cancer, and that's what kind of like snowballed into this whole thing, right?
Gotcha.
Now, the question that got brought up through this whole thing is through the court case, the daughter, who was 17 when this happened, was tried and found guilty of murder, obviously, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Oh, it's not so bad.
So,
I mean, it's horrible, but...
Right, well, and I agree with you, but the question is, this girl was a 17-year-old girl who was obviously raised, whose growth, as a person was stunted by her mother, making her believe that she had some deadly cancer that was going to eventually
she was
kill
abused,
her.
Essentially.
Abused.
She was essentially abused her whole life.
Absolutely. Abused, neglected, and I would say ignorant to, the highest extent that a 17-year-old, your average 17-year-old could be.
Right.
So do you think then, is it right? Do you think that girl deserved to go to prison for 10 years for doing something like this? I mean, I understand it's murder, but at the same time, this girl was uneducated. She wasn't going to school, so she wasn't socializing. Right. And then the few times she did socialize, it was with this boy online. She just found out at 17 that she doesn't have cancer. And then she was, basically coerced into killing her mother.
So there's actually a name, there's a term for this.
I was going to say, isn't there like a law of like pleading ignorance or something like that?
Well, no. So what's going on is it's Munchausen syndrome is what it's called. Okay. And that is when a parent, generally a mother, but I guess it could be either parent, convinces a child from a very young age that they are sick.
So this is a thing that exists.
It's actually a mental illness that exists in some. I've only ever heard cases myself of it being the mother, but I don't see why it couldn't be the father. I've just never heard of any of those cases.
Well, I feel like the reason why it's always the mother is because I believe it's kind of a sense of like a separation issue, right? They want to make sure that
claim
daughter
it's a nurturing thing,
completely relies on them for everything.
Exactly, it's a reliance thing. It's a need, a need to feel needed.
Right.
But it's a true mental disorder that actually happens in people. It's called Munchausen syndrome.
Okay.
So I don't think it's okay to end the life of the person who is committing that against you.
Correct.
Because that's an escalation.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was a case of she was being kept in a cage in the basement,
right,
and they were like shocking her every night, okay, or like hurting her in some way physically or something like that, then it would be, and she broke loose one day. They didn't tie the door down or something. She kicked the door down and she killed the mom and ran away.
Right.
So now, okay, you're fleeing, you're fighting for your life. And I guess an argument can be made that she's fighting for her life either way, but you're truly fighting for your existence in that case, right? You're being physically harmed.
Right.
I would say you get away with it there. If it's the case of you're 17, you've been tricked your whole life, if she would have just told on her mom or gotten the right people involved, she would have been totally the victim and in the right, and the mom would have been dealt with in the ways that need to be dealt with. We already deal with people who have this disorder. So in my very fragile opinion, it sounds kind of harsh, but like the easy way to think of it would be like an eye for an eye.
Right.
But if you do that, it just, the whole world goes blind. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, she went a little too far, I think.
Well, it was because I wasn't sure how, because it was my coworker who actually asked me the same question that I just asked you, and I personally wasn't sure how to answer it, because at one point, what you said is, I do agree with you to an extent of like, murder is murder is murder, and in this case, just as you said, it wasn't so much a self-defense thing as it was just almost a spite thing, right?
Right.
So, but at the same time, you had mentioned that, she could have reported her mom to the proper people to let them know and stuff like that.
There were other outlets.
But at the same time, this 17-year-old girl had the mind and the mental capacity of an 8-year-old due to the way that the mother raised her. So
I do think that should be taken into account.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I look at it as like, well, would an 8-year-old, I don't know, like an 8-year-old would really know like how to, especially if you've been like disassociated from society.
I don't think that she should be tried as an adult, because there is a big difference. The same exact crime committed by a minor or an adult, the punishment is much less severe to a minor in general. So I do think she should be charged as that. I also think that there's something with the law where, I don't know the right words to use, but it's something about you don't understand what you're doing fully.
Yeah.
So, like, if a person with who is autistic or a person with Down syndrome or something like that, if they have a fit or lose control of themselves in some way and do harm to someone, they're still tried. Sorry about that, folks. They're still tried, and they still are punished because they hurt someone and broke the rules. But I do think that there's some way that the court takes into account that they weren't completely in control or understanding of the level of damage they were doing.
Right. Well, and that's what I had brought up to my coworker, because I do think there is something written in the, just like how you can plead insanity, I do think you can plead ignorance to an extent, and they can look at it in that way.
Something. I'm not sure what the word is, but I think there is some stipulation where, you're not in the right state of mind or something like that. Yeah. And it's taken into account. I mean, there's going to be a punishment either way, because clearly you ended a life, and that you can't just say that's okay. But already, right off the bat, you don't see her getting life or 25 plus years.
That's right. She gets 10.
10 years for murder when you clearly did it. That is kind of lenience in itself.
I guess so, right?
And she's not going to go to a max secure prison. They have different levels of correctional facilities where it sucks either way. I wouldn't want to go to any of them. Right. But some are a little bit better standards than others. True. She'll probably go to one that's maybe a little bit better, easier, less dangerous, maybe.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too. That's a terrible shame when things like that happen, man. Yeah. Because you're supposed to get judged by like a jury of your peers, and unless there's some people on that jury who have been through the effects of Munchausen syndrome, it's not a jury of her peers. It's people who really will never understand the situation she's in, that are judging her for it.
And you know what's funny is if they were trying to choose a jury, you know, if they were when they were going through the process of choosing members for the jury, what's funny is if there were people who have suffered from that syndrome,
they would be specifically taken out.
Exactly, because it'd be bias at that point.
But I mean, I don't know. That's another whole story in itself. But I think we've actually talked a little bit about the
I think we had a whole podcast about courts.
The whole concept of juries has baffled me from a very young age. Poor girl.
Yeah.
You know, I feel for her. I truly do.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible thing, but shit, she had a pretty bad life, dude.
I know. That's why I was talking about today too. I was just like, how fucking sad. Like, you're given one life and you just happen to be birthed to a woman who fucking convinces you. Yeah, an asshole who convinces you that you have cancer. I mean, and don't get me wrong, like, I know there's people out there who are born to parents who beat them and, you know, do worse things to them.
Sure.
But I don't know, there's some level of
mental
like,
abuse is just as bad as physical at some point.
Well, and that's what I mean. But like the level of mental abuse that something like that, you know, that kind of effect that can have on somebody is just because I feel like when it comes to things like parents who abuse their kids, whether it's sexually or physically or verbally, whatever it is,
right,
I feel like we're more well equipped to deal with those kind of situations because unfortunately they do happen quite often. But
often enough to need professionals for them.
Exactly.
At least. Yeah.
But whereas when you have a case like this, what you call Munchausen syndrome?
Munchausen syndrome.
Munchausen syndrome. When you have somebody going through something like that, that's, you know, I would argue, you know, it happens, but I'm sure there's not, you know, thousands upon thousands of doctors and therapists out there to deal with it.
No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily common, but there are hundreds of reports of it, if not a few thousand reports in recent history.
But based off of population, you know, that's still a very small number, you know.
I would say it probably happens more than something like schizophrenia does. So you think how common schizophrenia is. You know, it's not super common, but it affects enough people to where we have professionals and we know about it.
Right.
I would say that Munchausen syndrome probably happens a little bit more often than that.
I would kind of
put it into some kind of scope. Because I think most cases of it, of Munchausen syndrome, don't actually go down documented. I think they're just a person who ends up growing up a little bit fucked up and gets over that, moves through that as they become more of an adult.
Right. Or does, as you said, and reports, you know, the parent at some point in some way.
I think most cases aren't as extreme as this girl. It's usually not cancer. It's, you know, you're weak. You don't have a good immune system. You can't play sports with the other kids because you're just fragile. You can't, and then it just adds up over time. And that would be a case of Munchausen where it probably would never go documented. You know what I mean? So protective mother, mental disorder, I guess at some point there's a line and it crosses from one to the other. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know.
But how unfortunate.
Eminem, the rapper, he claims in a lot of his music that he suffered through that his mother actually had that disorder.
Really? I never
made him
knew
think
that.
He was sick when he was a kid.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, raps about it in some of his earlier work.
Well, he became a famous rapper, so
sure did. So yeah, it's a fucked up thing, dude.
Yeah.
People do fucked up shit to each other, and the only thing that I could hope that the saving grace of it is usually people like that, like this girl who go through this kind of stuff, when they're done going through it, they spend the other part of their life, what's left, helping other people to never have to go through it.
Yeah, that's true.
More often than not is what ends up happening. So she's probably got a lot of really amazing, great things to do with her life and a lot of people to help and save.
Right.
She's just got to go through this for the next few years until it's over. And
well, I mean, like you said, I mean, luckily she's, it is only 10 years. I mean, so she'll be 27 when she gets out,
still
but
a lot of life.
Still
She'll
a lot
be
of
our
life.
age.
Still
She'll
young.
literally be our age. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible shame, but it's not game over.
Yeah, not by any means.
Use the time, get educated, get a degree.
Yeah.
Try to do the best you can, right? That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm. I think the reason why we even got in conversation at work today was because I guess they're making a Hulu, on Hulu, they have a show about it now, or
oh, really?
or a movie or something like that.
It is quite the story.
Yeah. And
I hope they represent it well. I hope they do a good job of.
They probably, because it's not like a documentary. It's like, it's like actors and everything, but it's just based off of that.
Oh, maybe it's just about this syndrome. Yeah, this kind of situation happening. Well, in that case, good. I think the world should be a little more educated on it.
Yeah.
Because it happens, I would venture to say, more than we think.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
So we should know a little bit about it.
But yeah, I mean, that was my thing to open on.
That was your thing. Well, my thing is only maybe 1 to 2 notches less downer-ish than your thing is. Okay, so buckle in. So honestly, my thing, it's been going on for a few days now. It's some information that came out maybe 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah, you were telling me about that, but
and guys. So on this podcast, there's been a certain level that I haven't really wanted to stoop to.
Okay.
And that is entertainment news. Okay, so we've talked a lot about media and Hollywood and actors, and I'm all about that.
Well, and we did kind of talk about Jussie Smollett too. We did. More about
that. I've tried to avoid this issue because I think it's just so outrageous. So I'm talking about Cardi B, guys.
Good old Cardi B.
Cardi B.
What did she do?
Now, Adam, you have to understand. Adam doesn't even know about this, guys.
Yeah, I have no clue.
We're about 2 days late on this.
Okay.
So we're going to be the last guys with our opinions out on this whole thing.
Okay.
Everyone's already picked a side. It's okay. So a few days ago, Cardi B came out admitting that in her past, she had convinced some gentlemen from some clubs to come back to hotels with her, and she would then drug them, get them to pass out, and would rob them, and would then leave.
So she admitted to this?
She admitted to this.
Okay.
So I don't know why or how she admitted to this. I don't know if she was asked about it or if she was accused of it, or if just in good Cardi B fashion, she decided this is what she was going to tell people this day. Okay? But she admitted to it. All about it. So the first day, people were like, what the fuck? What is this? Started getting some views about it. And then good old Facebook, the Book of Faces, it started to go crazy that everyone was comparing her to Bill Cosby.
Okay.
Okay, in that the whole Bill Cosby was accused of drugging and raping girls.
Was she having sex with these men? Or?
No.
Okay.
She was not. There was zero sexual interaction that she admitted to of any kind.
Okay.
Okay. Only robbing.
Okay.
All right. That's what she admitted to. She says, I drugged them, and I fucking took their shit, and I dipped.
Okay.
Okay. So, Facebook starts to compare her to Bill Cosby.
Okay.
Few people jump on board, get it going real hard, and the whole world is in an uproar now.
Interesting.
That most of what I've been saying has been saying robbing people is not as bad. Drugging people and robbing them is not as bad as drugging them and raping them.
Okay.
And we shouldn't compare the two only for the reason that robbing is not as bad as raping. That is the underlying issue that everyone is mad about here, is that we're trying to compare robbing people to raping them.
Okay.
So no one's upset at Cardi B for doing this. No one is talking about how terrible. Everyone is mad that a few people attributed drugging and robbing to drugging and raping. And how dare they?
How sad.
Isn't that sad that
That
that's
is
the thing that
so
everyone
sad.
is... They threw the social justice warrior thing at it again of how dare you compare a crime to rape. Well, let's talk about how such an influential person, specifically influential to our youth,
Right.
is teaching them that it's gangster, it's cool to fucking use your looks and use your body to get men to go back to a hotel with them and then drug them and take their stuff. And if you do that, it's not wrong because you're a strong woman. You're empowering yourself because you have to do what you got to do.
Well, and that's just it. And then
What the fuck?
Yeah, well, exactly. What the fuck?
What the fuck, dude?
Because, and what angers me more about that is just as you said, nobody's pointing fingers at Cardi B. They're just pointing fingers at theft versus rape, right?
Yep.
And Conan's probably still gonna have Cardi B on his fucking show, along with all the other fucking.
Dude, Cardi B ain't going nowhere. She actually admitted to it. It's a cool thing for her. It's boosting her popularity. Now, if a guy was drugging women and robbing them,
right, that uproar.
He would not be a gangster.
No,
that would not be a gangster move.
I would argue. I would argue that there's even women out there who admitted to, if they admitted to that people would be in an uproar also. The problem is, it's Cardi B. And because Cardi B's personality fits the type that would probably drug somebody and rob them, they're like, oh, well, that's just Cardi
outrageous.
B.
Her gimmick is to be outrageous.
Oh, that.
So the more
I kind of like Cardi
B
B too, but she just lost me as a fan.
Bro, and you know what? It's sad. I really liked her too. I thought that the outrageous thing was fun.
I did too.
I got a very like Nicki Minaj kind of feel out of it.
Yeah.
Very out there. I was even cool with the sexual empower yourself with your body thing, you know? Cool. Rock what you got. Those are your assets. Rock them. You know? I get that. But when you're going to start to say that you're using it to break the law and you're totally cool with doing that because it's cool. It's awesome. No, not at all. I'm not okay with that. It doesn't bode well with me.
See, and here's the issue too, that this is snowballing so fast now, is because you had the Jussie Smollett thing, right? And we talked about this a couple days ago about how, as long as you have the popularity and you're a celebrity, you can basically get away with whatever you want.
Dude, his job kept him out of trouble on that one.
And now we're seeing all of a sudden, here's Cardi B who admits to something, and nobody wants to chastise Cardi B. They just want to chastise the people chastising Cardi B.
That's the thing. People are more mad at the people putting out the posts than they are her.
Yeah. And it's like, so what we're doing is we're setting a precedence that says celebrities are gods in this country and they can do whatever the fuck they want. You want to get away with everything? Be a celebrity. That's what we're telling people.
Well, we made one the president.
We sure fucking did, didn't we?
It's a crazy world, dude.
It's a crazy country.
At some point, apart from Cardi B, okay, like moving on from that was my thing about her.
Right.
We talked about it, guys. There you go. We'll probably make a clickbait name about it, and you'll all love it. Okay, but it makes me want to throw up fucking talking about it, so I'm gonna move on.
Okay, fair enough. Oh God, how fucking horrible! Like, come on, people, come on.
Anyway, what were you saying? Because now I lost my train of thought. Because now I threw up in my mouth. I forgot what I was gonna say.
All I was talking about was just how we're setting this precedence of celebrities can get away with whatever they want, and that's wrong. And if we're to a point to where like we're just, because I mean honestly, the same thing is kind of happening with Michael Jackson also right now, and. Like I said, regardless on whether or not you think Michael Jackson did what he's been accused of doing is almost aside from the point. It's the point that somebody was accused of doing this.
I remember my thought now.
And if your average Joe was accused of doing this, it'd be a very different situation,
Absolutely.
But because they're celebrities, we put them on such this high pedestal, and we're so quick to say they're innocent that we're not even willing to look at everything from a third party perspective. You know what I mean? We look at it through rose colored glasses.
You get the get out of jail free cards, man.
Yeah.
But no, what I was going to say is, I said we elected a celebrity.
Yeah.
And so apart from things like Cardi B and stuff like that, at a certain point, there really could be an argument that celebrities kind of do represent us better than a lot of politicians do.
Yeah.
I mean, are they not more attuned to our culture and what's going on?
Well, I would say they're not. Absolutely not.
Artists, they create the culture.
They create the culture, but I think at some point they become so disassociated with your average Joe. So I think I told you off mic once what Mark Wahlberg said once, or going back to Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg, we love to talk about him.
But he had said something during the 2016 elections where he stated that he thinks celebrities should stay out of politics in regards to talking about and trying to sway votes.
Right.
And his reasoning behind it was that celebrities are so disassociated with the blue collar workers that they don't really have a
more
place.
Than the millionaire politicians are.
Well, that's why people hate politicians, though. That's why we were so quick to vote Donald Trump in. It's because people didn't want a politician. I know we still got a rich white guy, but the fact is, we got
a celebrity.
Well, we got a celebrity, but one of the big selling points that a lot of people were arguing about Donald Trump is he's not a politician. People didn't want a politician. So, but it was lesser of two evils, I think, in a lot of people's eyes in regards to that. But
I don't know. To me, a celebrity could lose the popular vote for themselves at any minute. So they could say the wrong thing one day, and they'll totally lose their job, they'll lose their position, all their following.
Right.
If the president says the wrong thing, he's still the president for the next however many years.
Right.
I mean, when a politician gets elected, they're in for that many years.
Right.
So they can stop caring and then re-care again right towards the end.
True.
Celebrities, they got to always care about how they're being seen.
Well, and that's exactly why I do not think they represent us. Because one thing I learned very quickly when I was living in Los Angeles for a short period of time is and I would put myself more in the middle, right, as far as like liberal or conservative. But if any conservative value that I had, that I was raised with, I wouldn't dare talk about it in Los Angeles. Not dare talk about it, because you get chastised for it. It's sometimes dependent on whether you get a job or not.
Right.
So to say that celebrities represent us maybe more than the politicians do, maybe they represent the liberals more, but they're certainly not representing the other side. And there's two sides to the coin. You can't just look at one side of it.
I don't know. I think there are conservative celebrities too.
There are, but you don't hear that. They're not releasing commercials saying vote for Donald Trump. You saw a bunch of commercials of celebrities coming out saying vote for Hillary Clinton. You didn't see anybody coming out saying vote for Trump or anybody else for that matter. And you never see that.
True.
That's
true.
And you are correct. There are conservative ones out there. Tim Allen is a famously conservative actor, right?
Okay. The Home Improvement guy?
The Home Improvement guy.
Oh, no kidding.
So he's famously conservative. And I was watching him on a news show once. And he was talking about how he was talking about that polarizing view in Hollywood in regards to conservatives and liberals.
Right.
And he goes, I know tons of conservative actors, but I would never tell anybody that they're conservative. And he goes, and nor would they.
Oh, wow.
That's how deep it goes in Hollywood in regards to the bias that there is between liberal views and conservative views. And there are those who speak out with conservative views who blacklisted. No more. Can't work anymore. Because now they've said something that goes against the narrative, so they can't have them in movies.
I don't know. At least a lot of them were normal people at some point.
Well, at some point they were.
A politician, they're bred and raised and groomed from the minute they're born to be where they are.
Well, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you though. So I do agree that as far as if the question is who represents us more, politicians or celebrities, I would say celebrities.
Well, those are the only two groups that have any chance of getting elected.
Well, and that's my point, though.
Right. You have to have a following.
But I believe those are also just two evils that you have to choose between. I don't to say that, maybe if it was a little more equaled out as far as like you had a big group of celebrities who were arguing the conservative values and then the other side arguing the liberal values, then I would more agree and be like, yeah, celebrities definitely represent us more than like the politicians do. But if you're a liberal, I would say, yeah, the celebrities represent you big time. But if you're not, they don't.
Do you think that we should have more parties? Like than the two?
Yeah, I do. I think anybody would say that we should, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I think we should have like 5, dude.
Like 5 main ones?
Like 5 of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I think that society can be more generalized than just, or is less general than 2 groups. Mm-hmm. I think it takes more than just 2 sets of generic beliefs.
I agree.
To split everyone up into. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. That's why I guess so many people say, "Well, I'm a libertarian. I'm the third party," because it's very convenient to say that, right? Because then you don't have to pick one of the sides.
Well, I don't even think it's so much of. I think when you say you're a libertarian, it just helps people. It helps like soften the blow of conflict is what
Absolutely.
I think it does.
It's a total deflector.
Because and I think it's an important deflector to have because I mean if anybody were to ask me, I would probably say the same thing of I'm a libertarian.
It's literally just saying you're neutral. It's just saying I'm neutral. I don't want to talk about it.
Exactly.
That's literally all it is.
Because
so it's not an actual like set of beliefs.
No, yeah, people would argue that there is, but I agree with you. People don't say that because they believe it. They say it because they don't want to talk about it.
Absolutely. Which is a shame. I think if there were 5 parties, mm-hmm. there would be a lot less fighting. Yeah. Only because inevitably you would have to team up with at least one of the other parties, right?
Right.
Because you're constantly going to try to get 3 against 2 because it's 5. So you have to have 3 for the majority to do anything.
Right.
So inevitably you're going to have people who are going to team up. Mm-hmm. You're going to have parties who don't like each other. They're opposites.
Right.
But at least you're going to get 60% working together at any given time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas now, unless we voted in mm-hmm. that 60-40 percentage, it could be 50-50. Mm-hmm. It can be anywhere from 50-50 all the way up.
Right.
So I just think it would spread it out and make it a lot more even to represent everyone.
Yeah.
There would be a lot less bickering. There'd be a lot less of this, like, which side are you on? Because it wouldn't fucking matter. There's 5 sides. You know what I mean?
Well, and unfortunately, the only way that we're going to get to that point, and the reason why, because there's tons of parties, but the only reason why none of them are able to get any headway, you can argue the Green Party and the Libertarian Party are probably the only other 2 contenders, and they're not even anywhere close to,
Honestly, Adam, I thought those were the same thing.
Really?
I didn't even realize those were 2 different things.
Those are 2 different parties.
Yeah, I thought they were the same thing. I thought that's all just different words for I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, no, those are 2 different parties. So, like, in the last election, it was like Jill Stein was the Green Party, and then I can't remember who the guy was for the Libertarian.
But they're not...
Well, the problem...
They're not real in the sense that they actually have any kind of political sway over anything.
Right, well, and that's my point. So it comes down to money. The reason why every year or every election year you have, basically just Republican versus Democrat is because of the money that gets pumped into those campaigns.
Right.
So, and there's no cap as to how much money can be pumped into a campaign. One thing that I think should be done differently, and I want to say the UK does like this, but I'm not sure. I know there's some a European country that does it like this, though, where every election year there's a cap to how much the party can use towards their campaign.
I think it used to be done that way.
Mm-hmm. And everybody has that cap that they can go to, but then that's it.
I think within our lifetimes, they took that cap away.
Really? Did we ever have a cap?
I think that it used to have a cap. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'm not positive. I'm certainly not an expert on it.
I feel like we didn't have maybe if we did, maybe it was like years and years and years ago before even like our parents' lifetime.
I want to say around like the Obama days. like when he was getting elected for the first time, was when they changed right around that time, like early 2000s.
We'll have to look that up after.
I think.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Don't take that with a huge grain of salt, guys, because I could be 100% wrong. I don't know. For some reason, it's tickling me that I think that we recently changed that. Recently being the last like 20 years.
I feel like we never had a cap because I feel like that's the exact reason why we have lobbyists, because lobbyists go out there and try to get as much money as they can from these people to pump into the campaign. And we've had lobbyists for... ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think that's one of the big issues is just how much money is packed into these campaigns. And unfortunately, the two contenders right now are Republican and Democrat. And you know what? I don't like either one of them. you know? And that's what angers me the most is we're always talking about, oh, well, we need somebody to represent us. We need somebody to represent us. And it's like, okay, but you're asking two things that are very black and white where most people are fucking gray.
They're literal total opposites. There's no middle ground.
Yeah, so you're literally asking everybody to choose just that, the less of two evils. Mm-hmm. And one thing that bothers me in regards to how polarizing these two parties are, and the reason why, if somebody asks me, I'm just like, oh, libertarian, don't want to talk about it, is because I am somebody who personally has some views that fall more on the liberal side and some views that fall on more the conservative side. But if I'm talking to somebody and there's a subject that comes up that I just happen to have a conservative view on, I could have all my other things could be liberal views, but if that subject's being discussed and I'm talking about my conservative values about that one subject, what happens? Everybody goes, oh, you're a Republican. Period. End of story. You're a Republican.
Right.
And the same thing happens on the other side. So it's almost like we feel like we're forced to choose a side because people are just going to group us in with them anyway. So we might as well be the ones making the choice ourselves instead of somebody else making the choice for us.
So do you think that, what if they literally forced you to vote? What if it was the law that you had to vote, or you'll go to jail?
Okay.
Like literally, it would be like not paying your taxes. You might get away with it for a few years, but if they find out, you go to jail, like for a long time. Okay. That level of intensity, you have to vote.
Okay.
Do you think that would force people to start to create new parties? Because right now it's easy to say, oh, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm not going to vote. There's zero penalty to doing that. No big deal. Meanwhile, the people who are Republicans or Democrats say, I am that, I'm going to go vote. So they keep perpetuating that and keep it going.
I think if it was by law, you had to vote.
You have to vote.
I think you absolutely would, and I think you would have.
I would want a new party, because if I have to put a vote down on paper, I don't want to give it to either one of those guys.
And I think you would have, if that were the case during the 2016 elections, I think you would have seen a big uproar and a lot of protests arguing just that we need more than one major party, because there were so many people who hated Hillary Clinton and so many people who hated Donald Trump.
So why in such a supposedly democratic society, okay, we're so democratic, we fucking invented that shit. Not really, the Greeks did, but we're super, super democratic. Why is it your right to not vote? Why should that not be the one thing that you don't have a right on? You have to vote as an American citizen. It's weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have an answer to that question, but I also don't think it should be a law to vote, though.
Why?
Just because we are a democratic society, you know, I
So you shouldn't have to put into that system?
Well, I think we do put into that system. It's called paying taxes. We put into that system in different ways. And I think it's just one of those things of like, you know, it was kind of the same argument with the 2016 election, right? So yeah, Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote, but Donald Trump won the Electoral College, right? Which is what matters. And there was also a big percentage, more so than a lot of the past elections during the 2016 election, of people who did not vote. And the reason why they did not vote was because everybody was just so sure, well, Hillary Clinton's going to win, so why do I need to go vote? Whatever, you know? So I think it's one of those, it's an important lesson to learn of like, okay, well, if you don't vote, you're leaving it up to everybody else to make the decision for you.
We're not learning for our entire lives. Since we've been alive, Adam, since the Clinton days and before that, less than 20% of the population votes.
Well,
we're one of the lowest turnouts in voting in all of the democratic countries on the globe.
Well, I think we are learning though. And I think you saw that during the last midterm elections because it happened here in Arizona for the first time.
Okay, you saw an immediate response.
Well, that's what I mean though. And I would argue that, I mean, you're arguing that there has been no lesson learned. I'm arguing that there hasn't been enough time that's passed to even see if a lesson has been learned or not. But what we have seen...
No, I disagree. I think 26 years is enough time.
Well, I'm not...
That's like multiple different presidents.
Yeah,
but... 1, 2, 3... That's almost 4 different presidents.
But there hasn't been an election as polarizing as this 2016 one in God knows how long.
Well, do you remember Florida? The whole Florida thing with Little Bush? Mm-hmm. With Baby Bush? That was the first time you saw, in my lifetime, where a president won an election without winning the election. They didn't win the popular vote, but they won the Electoral College vote, and it was such a big deal.
Well, that was the first time you saw a major dispute with voting, but that had nothing to do.
And the same thing happened again, even worse, and that was 1 million votes. Or less than 1 million. This was 4 million votes this time.
Right, but what we're arguing is because the thing that happened with the Florida, that wasn't an issue of people not voting. That was an issue of the votes not being counted correctly. So what we're talking about is
which if
whether
more
you
people
should vote
voted,
or not.
there would be a bigger gap, and it would. Look, all I'm saying is that we're the only country that I know of in the world where you can choose not to vote and still apply and receive government benefits from the government that you put zero effort into helping create.
Okay.
Everywhere else in the world, that I know of at least, I could be, maybe I'm wrong, but everywhere that I know of, France, Germany, Italy, all the other democracies, if you don't vote, you cannot apply for anything that has to do with the government. You can't apply for health care. You can't apply for food stamps, subsidies, nothing.
Okay, so I'm for that.
You cannot be a part of the system if you do not add to the system.
Okay, so I am total in agreement with that. If you don't vote, I don't think you should get
Yeah, but they have like
access to those
96 or
aids.
92% turnout to their votes.
Well, but that's my point though. But the argument is whether or not we should make voting a law.
Right.
I don't think voting should be a law where you have to do it, but I think the contingency on it should be if you do not vote, then you don't get these kind of benefits or this kind of aid.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
I can meet in the middle ground there.
But I don't think that voting should be...
I think everyone should vote, dude.
I think they should vote too, but I don't think it should be something you're forced to do. And the thing is, if you were forced to do it in this country and people didn't like either side or whatnot, all they're going to do is how many people fucking wrote in Harambe, the 2016 election? The fucking gorilla. People wrote that in. People went to the voting booths, waited in line to go into that little fucking cubicle.
If you want to write that in, that's fine. But you have to cast a vote.
Well, but that's my point, though. So it almost becomes like a moot point because you're either going to have people who, in a society where it's not against the law, you're going to have people who just not vote, or people are just going to write a bullshit name in.
The whole point of it is it's baby steps, though. It's building towards a greater good. Because immediately, you're right. The first year that you tell people it's the law, you have to vote.
Right.
Immediately, they're all going to say, fuck you, right? You can't make me do stuff.
Right.
Well, then the police are going to start arresting people, and they're going to go, oh, shit. Okay. So out of fear, not respect, because they don't respect you, but out of fear, they're going to start voting. So they're pissed off and they're mad that they have to do this. They're going to write in Mickey Mouse. They're going to write in my middle finger, all this bullshit, right? But now they're voting. We've put a Band-Aid on that obstacle. We fixed that.
Okay.
Now, once people are voting, we can work towards maybe educating those people. And maybe through a few generations of education and caring more about that, people will start to see that what they're being forced to do is important. and they'll be a little bit more enthused about it. In the meantime, you have children who are being born into a world where all they've ever been taught is that it's the law to vote. You have to vote. Now, all the other freedoms, I'm down with them, baby.
Right.
You shouldn't make anyone do anything they don't want to do.
Okay.
Except voting. That is the one and only thing. Because without it, there is not a system to be a part of in the first place. You have to do the bare minimum of creating the system, and then you can stop engaging with it if you want to.
Yeah, but the argument's going to always come in to saying that, like, oh, well, you know, like, you're not giving in enough to this system, right? The first argument people are going to give is saying, well, I pay taxes, you know?
To a government that is elected.
Right.
So you can't even pay those taxes to a system if you don't elect someone first.
Right, but at that same point, though, you're having people now who are, you know, all I'm saying is that the argument, as far as like not putting into the government that you're electing, the argument is, well, people do. They pay taxes, and people pay, you know, people who hate Donald Trump are still paying taxes to somebody they didn't elect. So should those people not have to pay taxes then, since that's not somebody that represents them? I mean, how would that change if you force them to vote?
Well, no, because I'm not trying to change any taxation laws.
Right. But isn't that giving in to the government? I mean, why does voting have to be mandatory when we already are forced to pay taxes?
No. I'm saying you have to give in to creating the government. You have to give in to creating it. Now, regardless of if you want to not have a job and you want to go out and grow your own food and you want to create solar energy, you want to collect solar energy, you want to be totally off the grid, you can avoid paying taxes.
Right.
The only taxes there are income tax and sales tax, fuel tax, anytime you buy something is when taxes are involved.
Right.
So you could stop buying things in theory, and in theory you would not have to contribute to that system anymore. But what I'm saying is it's totally unacceptable, in my opinion, to say I am not going to be a part of creating this system, but I am still going to live in the land that is protected and endowed by this system. The absolute bare minimum is you have to help us make it. Then once it's made, which is one day a fucking year, okay, I'm not asking for a whole lot here. One day a year, you go, you fill some bubbles in. And then you can stop engaging with it all you want. You don't have to do the tax thing. You don't have to, whatever you choose to live your life. Most people like to have a job and a house and a car and a family.
Right.
So we pay taxes to have that stuff. But no, in my opinion, you should have to be a part of creating it.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I really do follow. I just disagree.
Most people do. I'm definitely in the minority because we haven't changed it.
But that does bring up another question in regards to voting. Do you think, and this has kind of been a conversation, I think, within the last 10 years, people have really been digging into this conversation. Do you think that voting day should be a day off?
Yeah.
For everybody?
Oh, absolutely.
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree also.
Absolutely. It should be a holiday, paid holiday. Absolutely. Yeah. There should be mobile booths, the mail-in thing like there already is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Much like in Europe. They make a whole day of it. You get a paid day off. They make it super accessible. That's part of the stipulation of the whole, if you don't vote, you can't do anything for us. Like, you can't even renew your driver's license, bro. You can't do shit if you don't vote. You have to live totally off the grid, totally by yourself.
So in the countries where it is against the law to not vote,
well,
right?
I don't think that there is any country that officially has a law that says you must vote.
But they just can't get the benefits.
You can't get any benefits
like that,
if you
right?
don't. Right. Yes.
So does that mean that they don't get any benefits until the next election year?
Correct. Till the next time you vote.
Ooh, that's rough.
You give it up for the year. And for most people at that point, that's such a hefty penalty that they say, well, why would I not take a paid vacation, very easily given to me? They give it to you on a silver fucking platter, dude.
Well, and see,
it's an obvious choice.
Well, and see, along those lines, I do agree with that. So I would be totally for saying, like, hey, if you don't vote, there are certain things that you're not going to be able to have access to or be able to get, especially like government benefits. But as far as going as far as making it by law you have to vote.
I don't think any of those places have done that.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, it does get a little dictatory. It does.
Well, and that's the biggest reason why I disagree with it. It's just slippery slopes.
Just
slippery
for me, it's such a simple set of words that causes so many issues to just go away.
Right.
Because the level of complaining, of bickering, of sides, of segregating each other, it would all go way down, if not away, if everyone could just say, I feel represented.
Right.
I feel like I was a part of this. You should never feel like your vote doesn't count.
Right.
And mathematically, your vote, there's never an instance where your vote does not count. Mathematically, every number counts.
Right.
And any intelligent, educated person knows that, and that's why they vote.
Right.
The reason people think that my vote doesn't count, it doesn't matter if I go or not, is because the people who we have in power do not want us to vote.
Right.
So they put a lot of resources into teaching us from a young age that our vote doesn't matter. That is what's really, really wrong, in my opinion. They are purposely keeping information and knowledge from us so that they can keep more power over us.
Well, and
in general,
and I agree that that's happening also, but I feel like then that should be a reason enough for people to want to go out there and vote, and that goes back to kind of the original topic of, you know, I do think the 2016 election was definitely a learning experience for a lot of people to know, okay, voting does matter, and I do think in 2020 you're gonna see the number of people going out there to vote just fucking skyrocket.
So do you agree with mandatory military terms? So for every person to have to do 2 years in the military when they get out of high school. Do you agree with that concept?
Yes, I do. So like initially I wanted to say no just because I'm somebody who personally just never had an interest in joining the military, not due to like a lack of pride for my country or anything like that, just not for me, right?
Right.
But at the same time though, there are so many positions in the military that never even like step foot on foreign soil and things like that, to where like I don't think there's any reason why somebody can't put 2 years into it.
So
you know what I mean?
That would mean that there is a law that says, and some countries do this, Israel does this.
Yeah.
There is a law in place that says every citizen with a social security number has to do 2 years of service for the military.
Right.
So if you're okay with that, and not to put like you personally on too much blast, I'm just talking to your friend to friend.
Right,
you know
right,
what I mean?
feel you,
I respect everywhere you're coming from with this, but if you're okay with mandatory military terms, what's the difference between forcing someone to be part of a government's military and forcing them to vote for the leadership in that country?
Well, I mean, I guess just at face value, there isn't, much of a difference. But I mean, I look at it I think I come from the military aspect a little differently, though, than like how you're thinking of it, to where like I don't initially think of, oh, it's because you live in this country, you have to, fight for this country, or you have to serve
You don't have
in
to
the military.
fight. You just have to be a part of its military.
Right, be a part of the military. I look at it as more of like a character building thing of like, I think everybody would benefit.
Why do you not think of voting as a character building thing? Why do you not think of educating yourself about the different candidates and then going out and casting an opinion about one? How is that not?
Well, because you can force somebody to vote, but you can't force them to do research. Whereas like something like the military, when you're embedded in, when you go into the military, especially like boot camp, they teach you to make sure you're always standing up straight. They exercise you. They teach you to always make your bed every morning.
Right.
They teach you these life values that I think are character building tools. Whereas like voting, I could do zero research and not even pay attention to the debates or anything, and then go to a voting booth and just put somebody's name in, or just check mark a box. Without, and just doing it because, well, it's the law. So I guess this person, You know, there's no character building, I feel,
But
in
it's still
that.
the same amount of rights being taken away either way. It's still because for someone to go through the military and go through boot camp and come out this rising star of all this discipline, it's because they want to be in the military. We have a volunteer military.
Right.
So people who are in it chose to go and do that.
Right.
Now you start taking everybody and putting them through that process, and you're going to see a lot less shining stars. There are a lot of people who right now volunteer for the military and they don't make it through.
Right.
Because they tell the drill instructor to fuck off. They can't take the structure. They can't take the boot camp.
Right.
Now, all those people, you can't tell them to fuck off now. They have to be in that system.
Right.
So you're going to see a lot different results as far as the whole character building thing. But the main point, I'm not arguing whether voting or... Well, I'm not arguing at all, first of all. We're not discussing discussing whether the military or voting is better for you as in your character development.
Right.
We're discussing whether it's okay or whether it is taking someone's rights away to make them do something that has to do with the government.
Right.
So is it taking someone's rights away to say you have to be part of the military? Well, right now, yes, because it's a volunteer.
Right.
But if we have a draft, if World War III happens and there's a draft, then you don't have the right to not be in the military at that point.
Correct.
So we could easily write a law that just says you don't have the right to not vote. So I think that the immediate response is you're taking my rights away. I have the right to not cast an opinion.
Right.
You're taking that away from me, and that
Yeah.
kind of just feels un-American. That doesn't
Right.
really feel correct, you know. And I get that. And I agree wholeheartedly with every other subject except voting. Literally, voting is the only subject where I'm like, it should be the law. And then after that, I'm all about rights, baby.
Well, I given what you just told me, then I would ask you the same question. Do you think there should be like a mandatory like serve in the military then? If you think there should be a mandatory you have to vote?
Not unless there was such a dire situation that we were like losing a war and needed to do it.
So
but no, I think
why have it in one place and not the other then?
Well, because I just said I'm all about rights once the system is built. Once those people are in place and you've built a government made up of the 600 people or whatever it's made up of, then interacting with that, you should have all the rights in the world. I love America. I love our Constitution. It protects us from the government, okay? But you have to build that government first. There is nothing to even begin talking about until those people are in power. Then we can start to do things.
I feel ya.
You know what I
get
mean?
that.
And for the military thing, I think our military is so powerful and is so strong.
Where it's like not necessary.
Oh, no. I think the reason that it is that way is because it's a volunteer military. You've always seen much more powerful militaries from volunteer countries. Everyone in the military wants to be there, and they can leave when their contract is up at any point. They keep signing a contract every 4 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would much rather, dude, if I'm in a trench with a rifle, I would rather be around guys who volunteered to be there than guys who are forced to be there.
True.
Yeah,
True.
no,
I totally get that.
I'm all about the volunteer military.
And I am too, just to be clear, like I am too, you know, like
now there's very successful
countries
countries like Israel and stuff who, because of where they live geographically and what's going on in that
there's already
world,
like this built-in pride already. So
there's the pride, and they genuinely need a lot of those skills in day-to-day life there. Shit blows up around them all the time.
Yeah.
It just does. So, no, I think that the military is a wonderful institution, and everyone can benefit from it. But I'm all about those rights, though. It should be your right not to be in it.
And that's where I was coming from with it too. Is like so just to be clear, if that was on a ballot that said like should people serve for 2 years, I would vote no against it.
Oh, I'd have to really think about it.
You know, if it was on the ballot, really,
I'd have to really think
serving
about
in the
it.
military. Because
yeah, there's so many successful countries that do it.
Well, and the only reason why I put that above, like, putting it for the law of voting is, and not to sound like a broken record here, but just like it comes back to, like, we've talked about education before,
Oh, yeah, I love
and
it.
I think when you take it's one thing to take somebody who's already smart and intelligent and well put together and put them in the military. You obviously get a good soldier from that.
For sure.
But then it's another thing to take somebody who's, not as, well equipped mentally or physically, to put them through that process for a couple years and then them come back being just a stronger American citizen because of it.
Absolutely.
So that's why I would be more prone to vote yes to, like, a mandatory military service as opposed to, like, saying you have to vote.
Well, in my world, you would have to pick one or the other, or I would put your ass in jail. So, if I ever become emperor of the world, that's what I'll be doing.
That's what you can expect, guys.
That's what you can expect. I don't ask much. I just ask that you vote.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, it's, and I respect people's, right not to vote, but I do very much think everybody should. I vote in every election. I think everybody should absolutely. And for those who are pissed off of the results of the 2016 election, guess what? That fucking happened because a lot of people didn't fucking vote.
I bet 9 out of 10 of you did not vote.
Yeah.
Of you, meaning the ones who are upset with the way things are going.
Yes.
Of those people, I would venture to say that 9 out of 10 of you didn't vote.
And one thing my parents always told me growing up too is they always said that voting earns you the right to complain about the way things are going.
Too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you didn't vote, then you have no right to fucking complain.
You didn't even put your opinion in, man.
Yeah.
There's literally one day a year, one day every 4 years, where your opinion matters.
Yes.
You get to speak. It's a little word, but you get to speak it.
Yes.
And
it does count. As much as you guys might think it doesn't, it does.
If nothing else, as we're probably coming to a head here, just remember, guys, don't let them tell you that your vote does not count. Because it's a fallacy. It is not true. They're tricking you. Okay?
Yes.
Your vote matters as much as anyone else's vote matters. And the only way that your vote really doesn't matter is if you don't cast it at all.
Yes.
Okay. So it should be an honor to you. You should have pride to be able to vote. A lot of people have died for you to be able to vote, guys.
Yes, but you could also argue a lot of people have died for your right not to vote. It's definitely a gray area. It's definitely a good open for discussion. And I'm curious for you guys.
Let us know how you think, guys.
Yeah, leave a comment.
Do you vote? We don't really care who you voted for. We don't want to hear about that. What's done is done.
Yeah.
We want to hear more about do you participate in voting, and maybe why do you participate in it? Are you prideful of it? Do you do it so you can complain?
Yeah. I'd be interested also. Let us know.
Yeah.
All right.
But anyway, that was fun. Holy
fun.
Shit, I had a lot to say about that. That was a good one.
That was good. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of today's podcast, the 50th episode of the Hardly Millennial podcast. And what a riveting conversation it was for the big 5-0.
It wasn't supposed to go that way.
But it certainly did.
It sure did.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to this, guess what? There's an update coming out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
You guys are going to learn some new and exciting things that Hardly Millennial are doing here. All right, guys, so thank you so much for listening. Remember, you can follow us on all the social media platforms. We'll have more to say about some of those things tomorrow because there are some changes being made. Thank you so much for listening, guys. And any final thoughts, Matthew?
It's been an honor, guys. And we can't wait to do it again tomorrow. Come on over and we'll do it again.
The big 5-1.
Woo! See you guys tomorrow.
Bye-bye.